Campaigners against the high-speed rail link between Birmingham and London say the government's compensation schemes aren't enough for everyone that's affected by it. They say that people living near the line but outside the full compensation scheme area will lose money on their homes. We asked the Rail Minister, Simon Burns, if he accepted that no amount of money would be enough for those facing the loss of their homes.
I fully accept that, and that is why we wanted to look for a scheme that we believed was fair to taxpayers and also was fair to people who will be selling their homes, but also to ensure that they had compensation.
Our reporter James Boval's in Weeford near Lichfield this morning, one of the places that's going to be affected by the HS2 route. So, James, how will people there be affected by this?
Well, Pete, Weeford's one of those one road in, one road out kind of villages that's right on the cusp of the HS2 line. Everyone living here is worried about it being built and worried about ever being able to sell their homes in the period before the line is here. The campaign group HS2 Action Alliance says that homes within a kilometre of the route, but more than this 120-metre threshold to qualify for direct compensation from the government, will lose a combined £30 billion in value, all the homes between London and Birmingham. There's 3 or 4 for sale signs along the road here in Weeford, but they've been on the market for a couple of years now, and basically no one is buying. Martin Lane lives in a cottage here in Weeford. He's been here for 12 years. It's a 200-year-old cottage. Martin, how close do you perceive yourself to be from the proposed HS2 route?
Within 150 feet. So somewhere in the region of about 50 metres, I would think.
So you're within that direct 60-metre threshold that the government says they will go in and buy your home at the market value, plus 10% on top of that. Are you happy with that kind of arrangement?
No, I'm not, because it will not enable me to replicate the life that I have here in the middle of the countryside that will be ruined. And I've been trying to think of another place that I could move to try and do that with the money that I would be given. And no, it doesn't work. So my whole life, quality of life, has changed with no reason for me to have done so. It's just been done because somebody's drawn a line on a map.
We've spoken to lots of people around this area who've been battling with the government for a couple of years now to get compensation under the hardship scheme. Some of them that don't live as close to the route as you. What kind of conversations have you had with the government over this whole issue?
I've written numerous letters to all the transport secretaries that have been in place over the last 3 years with this project, and every time you write, you neither get a reply that is direct to the questions that you've asked, and also they just refer you to the HS2 website. That is it. I have only received one correspondence to say that they're building a line in the 2 to 3 years that this has been on the agenda with the government.
The government says this is a generous package of compensation, that it's far more than they're legally obliged to provide. I mean, what kind of response do you have to that?
No, it isn't. It isn't. It is not anywhere near the sort of compensation levels that are required for people at this time of their lives that are between 50 and 70 years of age, because in certain instances like myself, even if I took the compensation and I wanted another mortgage, I'm too old to have a mortgage to replicate what I want.
So where do you turn then, Martin? If you don't think you can move because the package won't be good enough, but you can't really stay because the line will be within 50 metres of your home, what do you do?
I have no option but would have to sell and start again, basically.
Do you have faith in the Department of Transport for actually getting through these plans and doing the best for the people who live on the line?
No, I don't. This is the first time I've actually had any real dealings with the government departments, and everything they say is with a forked tongue. You cannot believe anything they tell you, because when I spoke to Philip Hammond directly at the Lichfield Roadshow for a period of 20 minutes, everything he said to me has proved to be incorrect, in my opinion.
We've had 2 Transport Secretaries since then, Justine Greening and now Patrick McLaughlin. Will you be speaking to the new Transport Secretary and seeing what he can do?
Yes, I will. Justine Greening, I never actually had a coherent response from, and I've been waiting for this new package to come through in terms of the compensation since May, which was when it was supposed to be. And now that the new Transport Secretary has taken over and we have this package, I'm still objecting to HS2 because most of the conurbations that are in the UK are within 2 hours. And if I could get to a business deal within another saving of 20 minutes of time wouldn't make any difference to me. I'm going for the profit in the deal and not because I can get there quicker.
What's the future for Weeford going to be, briefly?
I think it's going to be a place that is going to be left and a lot of empty properties that people will not be able to sell, or if they are living here, their quality of life will have been ruined.
Martin, thanks for joining us this morning. Martin Lane lived here for 12 years in Weeford. Damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, really, I think is the message from Weeford here. I'm going to be in Middleton a bit later on, another village on the high-speed 2 line where more, as you can expect, disgruntled local residents there.
Yeah, OK. Thanks very much, James. BBC WM's James Boville there. Let's talk to Thomas Crane now. Thomas is from the HS2 Action Alliance. Thomas, good morning.
Good morning.
The figure that we've heard, this £30 billion that people are going to be losing from their property values. How did we get that figure?
That basically is an estimation driven by the fact there's 170,000 households within a mile of the line, and they're looking at between a 30 and 40% decline in values.
OK, so this isn't like a 5%, 15%. You're talking a 30% to 40% loss on the value of their house.
And that's what's happened. I mean, you heard from your guest a second ago. The fact is that the government is placing on individuals the cost of HS2. They're not. The scheme they've announced yesterday, which the Minister was talking about, simply doesn't address the concerns of most people.
So what do you expect the government to do then?
Well, I think the government seems determined, unfortunately, as it has throughout this project, not to listen to people and to proceed. And, it's up to people that oppose it, like ourselves and many others, to try and change minds and try and push into a more reasonable place.
So when you say a more reasonable place, I'm just looking for a kind of an ideal scenario from yourselves. What is it you would like?
We came up with a scheme called a property bond scheme, which was essentially something which is private sector best practice. It's used by BAA around Heathrow. Essentially, it's a well-tested scheme. The government were well aware of it. And we pushed that as an alternative. I mean, we recognised that there had to be some kind of balance in this debate, and we thought that was a reasonable place to go, to try and recognise the fact that HS2 really is devastating many, many communities.
And when you put that forward, what was the reaction you got to that?
Well, we think the government ignored it, and that's one of the reasons why we're taking the government to court next month in a judicial review, because we feel that as they won't listen and they're not acting lawfully, we had no alternative but to take them to court, and that's what we're doing.
One of those places that it's affected is the village of Middleton, near Tamworth. BBC WM's James Boville's there for us now. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Pete. Thank you very much. Well, several villages, including Middleton, are very close to the high-speed 2 line, but the government compensation terms are very specific. So if you live within 60 metres of the line, for example, the government will offer to buy your home at the full market rate, plus a bit extra on top as well. If you live within 60 or 120 metres, then you can ask the government to buy your home. Anything over 120 metres, there's no guarantee that the government will give you any compensation at all. You have to apply and hope for the best, and many people have been unsuccessful already. Earlier on, I was in Weeford, just down the road from Middleton, a small one-road in-and-out village, a few homes there right within the firing line of high-speed 2. Middleton is slightly bigger. There are 150 or so homes here, but many of them, importantly, fall outside that 120-metre threshold to qualify for compensation. So residents here have fought vociferously against HS2 for many years now. Ian Waddell is the chair of the Middleton HS2 Action Group. Ian, you've looked through these compensation packages, the new terms. The government describes them as generous. How do you describe them?
I describe them as most ungenerous. We were promised that we would be pleasantly surprised by the original Transport Minister Philip Hammond by these proposals. We are unpleasantly shocked, to say the least.
So what's changed then that makes you feel that this isn't something that people in Middleton can subscribe to?
Well, first of all, if you look at the numbers of properties, they've declared this voluntary purchase zone where they will buy properties, but that's only 120 metres either side of the line. Well, our village, the majority of our village, 150 properties, all but about 3, fall outside that area. And for those outside that area, the existing exceptional hardship scheme, as it's called, which was always very, very difficult to access, only only 60 in the last 2 years, only 60 people countrywide actually achieved a purchase under that scheme, is now going to be worsened. The criteria are being tightened, and the government is trying to save money on this project at the expense of local people who are blighted by HS2.
I know the argument that you've often put forward is that Middleton as a whole has been blighted. It's not just the odd house that's within a certain exclusion zone. Every home in this village has been negatively affected by this.
That's absolutely right, James. If you talk to local estate agents, they will confirm that fact.
So, I mean, exactly where do you go from here? What happens to the rest of you who fall outside that 120 metres now?
Well, I'd like to explain, if I could, just for a minute, the way it's got worse. I mean, we're having now to wait, instead of 3 months with a property on the market and no buyer, we have to wait a period of 12 months. And only then, after then, can we apply for this compensation, which typically takes 6 months. So you're talking 18 months here to get your compensation. Well, if you've been put out of a job and you can't pay your mortgage, if you've suffered some injury and you can't climb the stairs and you need a bungalow, if you've got a job at the other end of the country and need to commute, you're going to suffer that hardship, not for 9 months as present, but for 18 months. That's why it's so disgraceful.
Ian, is there any way that you can entertain in the future, in 20 years' time, the idea that people here in Middleton are just going to have to grin and bear the fact that HS2 will come through here and people have to live with it?
I don't see that day coming, not until the bulldozers arrive. We should be fighting this all the way down the line. It's a vastly expensive scheme which the country cannot afford. It's the most expensive high-speed railway by far in Europe. And really, in the interest not just of Middleton, but everybody in the country, we need to have a big rethink on this one.
OK, Ian, thanks for joining us this morning. You can hear the passion in his voice this morning. Ian Waddell, the chair of the Middleton HS2 Action Group. There's a consultation now, another consultation open until the end of January, where people can give their thoughts on this compensation scheme. No doubt Ian and the rest of the people here in Middleton will be campaigning very strongly to the Transport Minister to change those terms.